Julie Knowles. I'm the ABA manager. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation. We've only got an hour, so I'm conscious there's quite a lot to cover in an hour. So I'll just start with housekeeping. So we'll do some welcoming introductions and what you're hoping to gain from the event, so that if we don't manage to cover some of the things that you have on your list, that we can pick that up outside of the meeting. My plan is to present the contents of the course as PowerPoint, and then I'll stop at various points because there is a lot to take in. So if you've got any questions, it's aimed at people who are new to Access, people who manage Access maybe, who are managing teams who are running Access HE, or if you're a new tutor, you may need to seek some support from your manager based on some of the things that come out of this event today. So you're welcome to add questions in the chat, and I'll address them as they come up or at the end. It'd probably be best once you've spoken to put yourself on mute so that it avoids any potential interference, if that's okay. So if I can just ask people to say hello, who they are, where they're from, and if you say what you're hoping to get from the session, then I can make a note so that I can make sure that we cover as much as possible. So I don't know who wants to go first. I won't put anybody on the spot.
Oh, shall I jump in, Julie? I'll start it off.
Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, my name's Andrew. I'm actually internal staff, so I work for Skills and Education Group, but not on the Access side of things, so I work in compliance. And I think it's fair to say, Julie, we just would like to have a better understanding of what you guys get up to. I know you're very, very busy, but it would just be great to have a much better appreciation of what's actually involved in the Access side of things, knowing what the
well, I think you've had a bit of a baptism over the previous few weeks, haven't you, where we've dealt with certain tasks. So yeah, I think to put some of that in context would be really, really good.
Absolutely. I think we realised just how big it is, and I think we realised probably how little we knew. So this was just an ideal opportunity to know more.
Great. Well, perhaps you can make any kind of notes that we could pick up outside of this as well.
Yes, of course I can. Yeah, no problem.
No, I'm not saying make any big notes, but any notes that come up that we need to kind of make sure we address for centres and people on the event. That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Daniel, would you mind next? Because you're on my next on my.
That's fine, Julie. Yes, I'm also internal staff, and I work with Andrew in the Compliance and Regulation Department of Skills and Education Group. So we don't really have much. We have a little knowledge on Access to HE, but not a lot, and we want to get to know more. We're inquisitive people, so we want to get to know more about all parts of the business. So it's going to be an eye-opener today, and to learn more about Access to HE.
And again, you've been roped into certain activities, haven't you?
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah, again, to put that into context. Yeah. Thanks for that, Daniel. Shall I go down my screen? Oh, hello, Lisa.
Hello. Thank you. I'm from York College, and I've only just started, so I have no idea on this. I've taught A-level maths and further maths and A-level statistics, as well as like normal school stuff all the way through my 11 years of teaching. So this is the first time I've had access, and we got the email, so I said, right, I'm just here to just find out, making sure that I know as much as I can before we start doing it. But I've got the other people in the department as well, so I'm just new to everything to do with HE Access.
Okay, well that's always a great place to start. And in terms of your support team, you know, Marie and Deb Hunter, we have really kind of regular contact with them. So if there's anything out of this, then we can pick that up for you or for the team, you know, generally. So welcome.
Okay, thank you. Those names mean nothing to me at the minute. I'm ever so sorry.
Do they not? Okay.
If they're not in the maths department, I really don't know.
Right. So you really are.
I'm bad with names at the best of times. Faces I'm fine, but names I'm not. So, yes.
Well, like I say, do write any things down that you think I need more information on that, and
I'm ready. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Brilliant. Okay. John, are you happy to say who you are, where you've come from?
Yes, I'm in a very similar position to previous lady. I also have started at York College. I'm in the Maths and Science department as well, so she's a colleague of mine, but I don't think I've met her yet.
Right.
So I'm new to this. I don't have any experience at all with Access. I'm tutoring an Access class, and well, to be honest, I've got no experience in what Access actually is.
Right. Oh, well, again, you know, if there's anything as we go forward, there is, like I say, there is quite a lot to pick up on. Some of it may not mean very much at the moment, but it just puts into context the academic year as we go. So welcome, thank you for that. Tara.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm from Grimsby Institute of Further and Higher Education. I started teaching on Access in March, just before lockdown. So I'm starting with the full year this year. So I really wanted to come onto the course to find out what I don't know really, and to make sure that I'm starting the year right, so that I can get everything done as we need to get it done, and that I'm ahead of the game essentially. I know what I need to do, and I can give my students the best experience.
Yes, yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. What I'm conscious of, you know, they do recommend on PowerPoints you don't put lots of information, and I've got completely against that, so I've put lots of information on. We will share the PowerPoint with you.
Thank you.
Recording available to everybody after the event. So the idea is that it's for new tutors or for people who manage Access HE tutors who need just a general sense of what happens from I've worked on the start of the academic year through to the end of the academic year, and I've taken it through in a sequence. Brilliant. So if that's okay, I'll move into the slides now. So, but just before we do that, I wanted to put CERTA in the context of our wider family, if you like. So I hope you can all see that. So CERTA is part of the Skills and Education group. So the colleges that you work for are likely, they will be part of that group, and they may also do work with other areas within the Skills and Education group. So you may do Access with CERTA, but you may do non-access courses with ABC Awards, and you may have membership as part of the bigger group. So CERTA joined the Skills and Education group in 2017. So that just gives you, there are some changes around names and branding, but that's where we are at the moment. So it just gives you a sense of the different parts of the organisation and where the different elements sit. So objectives of today then, so that hopefully you'll go away today with understanding of the key points within the academic year, starting pre-enrollment. So kind of, I know students are making a start now, but kind of the things that to get yourself ready, hit the ground running with the new academic year. Plan out, know the key important days around registration of students, registration of units, your delivery windows, assessment, internal moderation, all the usual stuff around quality, external moderation visits, standardisation, both internal standardisation and external, and then awards boards. And we'll look at the post-award board activity. Now, awards boards has been really different this year, and as you might imagine, there's the QAA has brought in an extraordinary framework to deal with the COVID-19 implications where colleges close. So we'll have a look at that as we go through. But generally, what I'll be presenting today will be under normal circumstances. I jumped into towards the end of a QAA clinic. They have weekly clinics. So I was in one earlier on, and they are talking about, you know, We've got to have a plan B again for this year, but it, you know, there is a chance that plan B becomes plan A. We don't know what's going to happen. There might be regional lockdowns, there might be national lockdowns. So there is that, you know, what happened this summer, we are taking forward. So some of it may be implemented as part of the regulatory framework. So there's the difference at the moment between the normal regulatory framework and the extraordinary. Okay, so so hopefully the things that you take away from today, you'll be able to help your students, work with other colleagues, and kind of ask for support from your managers and other members of the team to make these things happen and implement them, or pass it to somebody else if it's their job to do. Okay. So just an icebreaker then, won't spend too much time on this. If you, and you don't have to know any of these, but just very quickly, if you can write down what you think those acronyms mean. There's 6 there, and there's a new one at the bottom there for 2020. The others are common to us. So I'm not going to test anybody, but if you can write down what you think they might mean, and then we'll go through them together. Okay, did anybody get all of them? Did anybody get some of them? Yeah, we'll go through them. I've just noticed somebody else has joined us. So welcome, is it Petro? Hello, is that Petro Albano? I think you're on mute. Oh, yes, he's put a thumbs up. Welcome. So let's go through some of these then, and I won't spend too much time because these are terms that you'll become familiar with as you get into the swing of Access HE and what we as an awarding body, our language and QAA's language. So if I start with the QAA, it's known as a Quality Assurance Agency. It's the regulatory body for Access to HE diploma courses. It also regulates HE, and it's been doing that for a number of years. It regulates AVAs, and I'll come to what AVAs are, through 118 licensing criteria. So we have, as an awarding body, we have to demonstrate that we are compliant with all of the licensing criteria at all times. So any of you who might be familiar with the non-access side of things, qualifications, you may be more familiar with Ofqual. So they have a regulatory framework, and this is the same kind of thing. There are some similarities, there are some differences. So QAA is responsible for maintaining standards for the award of Access to HE diploma. And Access to HE diplomas are developed to a QAA diploma specification, which we will come on to. Access validating agencies, we are one of those. CERTA is an access validating agency, the AVA. So we are licensed by QAA. We have to maintain a license. We have to submit reports and data and reviews to QAA to show that we remain compliant, and we have to do that at various points in the year. We are governed by, we're a charity, so we're governed by a board of trustees and an Access to HE committee who oversee the regulation of the Access to HE diplomas. And as an awarding body, as an AVA, we award Access to HE diplomas to students. So there are 11 AVAs across the country. They're in different parts of the country. There's a long history of AVAs. Qualification, diploma specification, qual spec. It used to be called a learning programme plan, and I've only put that in. But anybody who's brand new to access to HE, that won't mean anything to you either, but we changed it to qualification specification. So every time we develop a new diploma, we develop a qualification specification, and that sets out how this diploma must run. So every tutor should get sight of the one that they are working to. So if you are in the science department, or you are in humanities and social sciences department, whichever team you are working, you should be able to get sight of that diploma specification. If you don't have one, or you haven't seen one, let us know and we can give one, you know, we can give you access to it. Every diploma is validated. It's developed in partnership with colleagues from colleges and colleagues from universities. It goes to a panel and it is validated at a panel, and then it is approved by our Access to HE committee, which has devolved responsibility from the Board of Trustees. And within that qualification specification, there are chosen units which are called rules of combination. So there are certain mandatory units and there are certain optional units. And each student must meet those rules of combination in order to get the diploma. So again, there are slight differences in what the qualification rules of combination are for different diplomas. But generally the mandatory units are around study skills and exploring skills, you know, kind of academic writing, that kind of thing, and introductory skills. And then the rest of the units are around graded subject-specific units, depending on which route the students are going in. So, like I say, ask us if you haven't seen one, or someone in the college doesn't know where to find one. Just ask us for that, and we'll be able to provide that to you. Time-constrained assignments, TCA. So this can be any exam, it can be a test, it can be anything that is considered to be within a timed constraint. So it, you know, it might be that you give your students a scene paper and you give them the, you know, the assignment brief, and they have to hand something in within 48 hours of receiving it. So it's time constrained, but it, you know, it's more familiar, people are more familiar with it around tests or exams, and universities do use them and recommend them. So it might be that students take the assessment at the same time, but if it's something where a student has to demonstrate a skill, then obviously that might be at different times, but it's within a time constraint. So it's used more on certain diplomas than it is on others, I have to say. RAC, this is the recommendation for the award of credit. This is CERTA's results sheets, and it's available. You may never need to be involved in going onto the portal, or you may want to work with exams to become familiar with our portal, but you know, let us know again if you need access to the portal, because that's where centres register students and they register units against those students. It's usually someone in the exams department. So the award of credit is on a spreadsheet format that you add the results to against those students, against those units, and then you upload it to the portal, and the portal recognises the award, either credits or diploma. So that will be possibly be something that you'll be involved in, but it might not be. You may just pass that to somebody else. Those recommendations for the award of credits are approved at an awards board, which we'll talk about later on. And also then those results are presented to our Access to HE committee, who approve those diplomas, those awards for those diplomas for those students for that year. So it's a formal process because the committee, like I say, the committee and the Board of Trustees have oversight of the quality processes of Access to HE. So I'm just going to pause there. Has anybody got any questions, or is there anything that you wanted clarification on? Unless I see a hand go up or some kind of a sign, I will keep going, and do, you know, remember you can ask at the end. Okay, this is a really interesting one, the ERF. This is the Extraordinary Regulatory Framework, and this is new for 2020. If you have just started on Access THE, or you've started during lockdown, you may have been involved in some of this, because the QAA, in partnership with the AVAs, we've all been very involved in the development of this framework, developed a framework which found a way to estimate students' results based on what had already happened before the 20th of March. So the 20th of March was the cut down, because that was cut off. That was the date that the colleges closed. So tutors were asked to estimate grades for units for students based on evidence that they had from before the 20th. So students that had completed units, students that had become involved in presentations, any work experience they might have done, anything that could demonstrate that the student would have got a particular grade if things had been equal. That had to then be internally moderated, and we did see examples where internal moderators queried the judgment of a tutor, and an agreement was made to either increase that estimated grade or lower it. And then they were externally moderated. So our moderators had to then look at that evidence and sample evidence to show that the results that we had for this year were not out of line with previous years. And we, as an AVA, had to do a huge piece of work on standardization of results. We asked one of our experienced moderators who was skilled in data to do a comparison, and the results that she found was, although there was a little bit of movement in passes and merits, there were some increased passes, but there were passes and distinctions. There were increased passes, but there were also increased distinctions, but nothing that you would be too concerned about. So we were quite pleased by that, because obviously we had to stay within a tolerance based on what QAA set. So it was all done online. You know, some tutors didn't have available evidence, so they had to go on anything that they could have available to them. It was a really difficult situation. And rather than there be an awards board for every centre, for every diploma, we awarded those students diplomas at one awards board that the AVA held. We've never done that before. And so we did just over 2,000 student awards in one awards board, which was quite a thing, really. So some of this will continue for next year. The QAA are expecting that we will still gather grade indicators. So again, this might be language that you don't quite understand yet, but there's a grade for a unit. And if you have been involved in some of that work since March, you will see that each unit has grade descriptors attached to them. And when you're assessing students, you have to agree a grade indicator, and then you decide on the midpoint to get the unit grade. But that's a whole different training, which we can do at another time. So I hope that's given some idea of what we've done over the summer, this extraordinary regulatory framework. So what I'm going to do now then is talk you through the different elements of what happens in an academic year. And again, it may seem like there is a lot to do, because there is, but this won't all be down to you. You know, you will have other team members who will be responsible for some, if not all of this. And if you are a tutor, then you will have some element of a responsibility for it. Some of it will sit outside the tutor team, and it might be within quality. But I just want to give you a flavour of what happens from pre-enrolment right through to the end of the academic year. I've worked on the basis of 3 terms, with the dates being September to December, January to March, April, depending when Easter falls, and then April to June, July. Some centres finish their courses in June, others go through into July under normal circumstances. But if you work on a semester basis, then obviously those timings will be different. So, your semester 1 might finish in at the beginning of February, and your semester 2 might start after that. So you'll know how yours works in each college. So pre-course then, this is kind of leading up to now. So each centre must be approved to run every year. Because if you imagine, we use risk ratings on Access HE, and in the very unlikely event that a centre receives a high risk rating, then, it might put in doubt their approval to run the following year. So again, our committee approves every centre to run for the following year. So we will be checking with centres next week, I expect, to confirm which diplomas they're running. And because at this point they will know which ones they've recruited to, which ones they haven't managed to recruit to, which ones that they're going to put on hold and maybe run in January. When we're hearing from centres that they're going to do some in January. So your local drive, so if you're new, it's worth asking somebody, either your team leader or the quality manager, where will you find the documents related to Access HE? So you should have the diploma spec, the grading scheme guidance, the Access HE handbook, recognition of prior learning and credit transfer requirements, on-course referrals, all of those things that you need to know about if a student comes to you to say, I did a course somewhere else, so I've already got some credits, what do we do? So there should be a place in your college drive where the Access HE information is. If you find that that you're missing something or something needs to be updated, let us know and we'll let you have that. We're very keen to know that as new tutors, anyone who is new, that you receive an induction. And so when the external moderator comes out to visit, they will ask that question. Has any new tutors had a thorough induction? And if that's been a well, yes or no, the external moderator will comment on that, because it might become a quality issue if tutors aren't inducted properly. So if you're new, you will know whether you feel that you've had some induction. And again, it's not normal circumstances, so there may be a little bit of flexibility in that, but there should be a process of induction so that you're familiar with CERTA's requirements, QAA requirements for Access HE. It's always good to have a look at CERTA's website. What we do is, if we've got any updated documents, we will put them in a OneDrive folder and we'll give everybody access to that. So that might come in through your quality team or your MIS team. And if it's specific to you as a tutor team, that will come to you directly. So we give you a link and you can click on that link and go to the documentation that you need. And again, if you can let us know if you needed something else. And pre-course, I would expect that as part of your team gatherings, your team meetings, all on Zoom and Teams, Google Meets, I guess, you will have been starting to talk about your assessment strategy. When is your teaching happening? At what points are the assessments within your terms, within your semesters? And who's going to internally moderate your units that you teach? And are you being asked to internally moderate somebody else's units? So it's those kind of preparatory things that we would expect colleges to make arrangements for. Once you've checked your tasks, because obviously you wouldn't be handing any tasks out to students without them being pre-issue verified, we call that. So the moderator will want to see that that's been done. So if you've written new tasks, so if you're new to a team and you say, look, this task doesn't quite work, and I've done this before at another college or in another course, I'd really like to change it in this, that must be pre-issue verified. And again, if you're familiar with other courses, you'll know that that's a quality process, because it must, the task must ensure that the student can meet the learning outcomes for the unit. Can't tell you how often we've come across a situation where a task, the student's done exactly what was asked of them, but actually the task didn't meet the learning outcome, and the student didn't then achieve the unit. So that's why pre-issue verification is really important. You should be either given or make available to team members a calendar of events and team meetings. So everybody's aware of that when they happen. The moderator will want to see that. They want to see team meeting minutes. They want to know that teams are following quality processes. And then again, once our moderator has made contact with quality to say, I'd like to make my visit, it's likely to be remote for certainly for the time being, and maybe for the much longer term for this academic year. You should probably know about that date. So if it's worth noting, we haven't agreed them yet, but they will tend to happen January or February for a first visit. If you are running a course for the first time, you will get an early support visit. But if this is an established course, your first visit is usually to be in January or February. And then we can tick this next one because you're already here. Clicking on relevant CPD events, so you're here at the CERTA event. But there may be some internal events that you want to make sure that you get access to help you with running the course well. And then if you have a responsibility or someone asks you for things, to start populating your course file, because then the moderator will want to see a folder, and obviously it would have been, in previous years paper-based, but it'll be an electronic folder where you keep examples of your assignment briefs, your internal moderator records, your quality policies, all of those things that the moderator will want to see. So again, might not be your responsibility, but worth noting that somebody might ask you for something to add to that. And again, if you're part of a college that runs a number of diplomas or has a number of sites, then there'll be some arrangement where you might be preparing to do some cross-college, cross-site internal moderation or standardization at some point in the year. So again, if you're working on one site, you may not even be aware that a college has more than one site. But it's just worth noting that we've got more and more colleges coming together to form groups. It's just good to familiarise yourself if you're just always based at one site. Student handbook, we've finalised the student handbook. That should be available to you now. So it'll probably be somebody in your quality team or someone who manages the course, who will populate the student handbook with your own information. So we've got a template, and you put your own logos on and your relevant information, and there's pointers within the document for you to add relevant information. So again, you can make sure that's available, your course, when you meet your students. Have you seen your student handbook? And then become familiar with centre tracking of student achievement. One of the things that QAA are saying will have to happen again this year is that we record grade indicators as well as unit grades for units. We tended not to do that. Moderators want to see that when they go out on visits, but we've not asked centres to provide that to us in the past. We had to ask centres to do that for the summer so that we could approve that what a tutor thinks a student should have got for an estimated grade mapped against some of the other units that they'd already achieved before 20th of March. So that will happen. We will be asking tutors to record grade indicators as well as unit grades. But we'll be making you know, the spreadsheet available, and you know, we can help individual tutor teams and colleges with that, because it will be an ongoing thing from the summer activity. So then we've done all of that. We're into term one. It's happening now. Students are starting to come back, aren't we? You know, I'm varying start times. You know, we've got some colleges are already in, students are in, some are in physically, some are doing half and half, a real mixed approach. So soon after students start the course, you know, once they've enrolled, there are 42 days before students then have to register with CERTA, and that seems a really odd number, but it is 42 days. It's a QAA requirement. But also at that point, you know, as students are enrolling, you need to have that conversation, or somebody in the college will need to have had that conversation. Do you want to claim recognition of prior learning? So a student may already have some access credits that they did at another college. They may have started 2 years ago and dropped out for whatever reason, but they might have some credits that they've done on one course and they want to bring them to this course. So students should have already been asked at enrolment. It may not be your responsibility, but you do have to notify us, because it changes how we record them in our system. Because obviously if they've already got credits, then we can't recredit them. So it's a recognition of that prior learning. So we can talk to any tutor team about that. If you find that students have said, oh, I did such a course at such a college, then you know, it's worth asking, because the student might not need to repeat some of the units. This next one is really important. You know, it's the exact name of the student. I dealt with an issue just a couple of days ago where the student said, I've got my certification, but it's not got my middle name in it. But we didn't have the student's middle name on our system. So he thinks that was a really easy thing for us to change, but actually it's quite a process. So I had to advise him to go back to his college, ask his college to make a request to the AVA to change that student's name. So it's not an easy thing. Once that student is registered with us, any change becomes a process. So middle names are really important. This student wanted his middle name on his certificate. And as far as our system was concerned, there was no middle name. So it's just, again, worth checking. If you are a new member of your team, it's worth checking. Have you told CERTA that I now am part of that team? Because we need a list of all the tutors that are working on that team. The moderator will ask for a list when they come out on a visit, but some colleges always notify us, and then other colleges we have to ask, have you got any changes? Has anybody left? Has anybody joined you? So if you are not familiar with Access THE, internal moderation and external moderation, it may be that you are just teaching for this year, that you won't be involved with internal moderation. And that's fine, but it's just worth becoming familiar with that, because, you know, if you've got previous experience of being an internal moderator or an external moderator for another warding body, then it would be really helpful for you to share that experience in internal moderation of Access THE. So again, just worth checking as we go into the first term. We will be making sure that visits, external moderator visits, are starting to be put in the calendar, and there will be a number of things that you'll need to have ready, or your team will need to have ready in preparation for that moderator visit. You will get a visit planner that will set out the things that the moderator will want to see. If there are team meetings still happening, the moderator will want to see those minutes, and any actions that you've set yourself as a team, the moderator will monitor those and press you for a resolution of them if it has an impact on Access Teaching quality. I mentioned earlier on, strict deadline 42 days for student registrations, and then 84 days for registering those students to the units. So there's a little bit more time. Now that is a good thing, because it might be that when students first start, they don't really know whether they want to take psychology or sociology on a humanities and social sciences. So they may just need a little bit of guidance in those first few weeks as to which direction. Ideally, they should have an idea where they're going, you know, so they should already have an idea of which university they're going to apply for, which course at that university. So we should be working backwards. So they should be pretty clear, but they may need some help about which units, because come the 84th day after enrolment, students will need to be registered. Quite early on, the process of assessment will start, and we've learned quite a lot around the difference between the long and thin approach and the short and fat approach of assessment. And those colleges who have taken a long and thin approach, where some of the assessment deadlines are more towards the end of the academic year, really it was a challenge for them to estimate grades for those students in the summer, because a lot of assessments hadn't happened yet. Whereas those who have done the, you know, the short and fat, where you do your teaching, your assessment, internal moderation, and then those units are done, they had a lot more to go on when we were asking them to estimate grades. So different teams, different colleges approach assessment differently, but I would imagine that based on what we've gone through over the summer, there is likely to be some change in assessment strategy for some colleges, so that if there are any regional lockdowns, if there is a national lockdown, then you've got more to go on to make those estimations. So again, have a conversation with your colleagues about what is your assessment strategy. And making a note then, for your own purposes, for your team purposes, what grade indicators have you assigned to those assessments for those students, because we will be asking for them. And then the last one on that page is student representatives. We ask every college to give us the name of a student rep for each of the diplomas. And in the past, we've invited students to our office in Wakefield, and we've kind of given them lunch, and we've got a sense from them independently of how things are on the course, and we share with them things that we think they will be interested in and that they can share with their fellow students when they go back. We will continue with that, but of course it will be an online approach this year. But it's a really interesting event for us, because we learn a lot from students. Students can hear from other students from other colleges, so they either go away thinking, oh, we do really well at our college, or they go away saying, we're going to ask our college if we can do that, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a good exercise. So again, it might not be you that we ask, but it will be someone in the college for student reps. I'll keep going unless anybody's got any questions, and I assume you'll note them at the end. So going back to term 2, RPL requests must have been approved. You can't just assume that a student's done some recognition of prior learning and it's all okay. You must contact CERTA about it. So if that's not you, just check with someone. Quality will have to make a request to CERTA, and we have to approve it. Keep the assessment records going of the unit grades. Midpoint, we're going to do some training on midpoint, because what we found during the summer activity, the extraordinary regulatory framework, is there was a misunderstanding of how you agree a midpoint on Access HE for a unit. And there isn't time here today to go into what the midpoint is, but we will be putting some training on And I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody outside of this if you'd like, just to get a sense of what does that mean. But basically, an overview is, if you have 3 assessments, say you've got 4 grading descriptors attached to a unit, and you've got 3 assessments, then in theory, you might have anything up to 12 grading indicators, possibly. You certainly will have, you know, between 6 and 9 grade indicators. You then rank those in order of pass, merit and distinction, and you go to the midpoint of that. So we've seen where people have really misunderstood that, and because they've got some passes and some distinctions, they've decided that the midpoint is a merit. Well, it's not, because you've only got pass and distinctions. So that's a really quick overview, and I really don't want to confuse you anymore, but it's going to be a thing this year that we will be focusing on. So it's really important that everybody understands the midpoint for a unit grade. You're gathering your assessment decisions, gathering your IM activity and results. Reports are really important, because in that visit where the moderator will remotely visit in January, February, the moderator will want to speak to students. They'll want to see all of your quality files. They'll want to see that internal moderation has taken place, and that the moderator has really acted on behalf of the AVA. I always see that as a tutor, if you're asked to moderate, you take your tutor hat off and you put a CERTA hat on, and you become a quality assurer on behalf of CERTA when you're doing an internal moderator role. Because you sometimes have to challenge a tutor's judgment and ask them to make changes, or for them to have a look at the grades that they're given, because it doesn't quite align with what your understanding is. So it's, you know, it's a critical friend, but it's not always easy. So if you have done some assessments, the students have not yet passed, and they've got a resit and they still don't pass, then there is an opportunity, and we can talk about that in a separate training, but there's an opportunity for a student to have a referral, what we call a referral. It's an extra opportunity to have an attempt at that assessment that they've not achieved, but it has to be made through a request to the AVA. It can't just happen. If they've had an assessment they've not achieved, if they get a resit, if they don't achieve that because they haven't handed in or they haven't met the criteria, then they can be offered an opportunity for a referral, and it takes it down a whole different process. So that's what we call on-course referral, because that's happening during the academic year. There's another process of referrals that's at the end, and I'll cover that. So you'll have had your EM visit. The quality team will receive the report, and we will expect that the quality team will disseminate that to tutors, and it will have recommendations possibly, will have conditions possibly. Access to HE diplomas are risk rated, so there will be an interim risk rate for that diploma. And there will possibly be some actions that you might have to address. It depends where you sit within that team. If you're a tutor within the team, then you may just be asked to have a look at an assessment task, or, you know, revisit something. If you are a team leader or a program manager, you may be tasked to action those things that came out of the visit report. So the quality contact will disseminate those reports. And again, if you have not had that by kind of end of February, middle of March, you know, it's worth just checking with quality. Have we had the visit reports yet? Because the moderator will check on those conditions and those recommendations at the next visit. And some of them will have a date on them, and they'll be expected to be addressed by the next visit. You will have had a schedule of when your internal standardization events are. So it is worth knowing what they are and attending them. You know, there may be one opportunity, there may be more, depending on how big your college is. We also have a mandatory standardisation event. It's usually been in our office in Wakefield, but we imagine that that is likely to be online this year. And it will take a different format, but normally you would come to an event that is related to your subject area. So it might be science, it might be humanities and social sciences, and it's great because you meet lots of other tutors and internal moderators from lots of different colleges, and you can share good practice, and we do lots of different activities. People really enjoy the events. It is mandatory. You must ensure that someone in your team for that diploma attends the event, because we don't have to do it very often, but we have to charge a fee if somebody doesn't attend. It's considered to be a requirement by QAA. So we haven't set those dates yet. Like I say, we're probably going to spread it over the year a little bit more, because in previous years it's always been in March. And then one of the things to check, and again, it might not be your responsibility, but someone in the team will need to be starting to talk to marketing to make sure that your promotional material for Access to HE is accurate. It's a licensing criteria. We are expected to present to our committee. So we have a committee in a couple of weeks, and we show them the spreadsheet where we've checked providers' websites, and you can only promote diplomas that you have approval to run. And what we sometimes have to do is contact a centre to say, you're promoting such a diploma, but you're not approved to run it. So you need to take it down, because QAA also check providers' websites, and they will contact us to say, according to such a college's website, they have this diploma, and according to our records, they're not approved to run it. So it's a licensing criteria requirement. But again, it's probably someone outside of your remit that does that. It's just to be aware that if you want to promote something, or you want to change the way that you engage students because you're not getting certain students onto the course, and maybe it's because the wording on your website doesn't promote that enough, then you can look at, you know, changing that and have a conversation with your marketing, and they then might want to have a conversation with us. So term 3 then, so this is towards after Easter if it's 3 terms, but you know, the last part of the academic year, you're now starting to get ready for the students finishing. It happens really quickly, no sooner the students started, but we're getting ready for them to finish. Academic years go really quickly, don't they? So you'll be starting to think about preparing for your final moderation and your awards board, and I'll talk about those separately. Final moderation is where the moderator comes in and samples student work. Now, they will have done some sampling at the first visit, so they may have already said, I'm happy with that work, I don't need to see any of that again, but I will look at this, this and this when I come back in June or July. The awards board is the thing that happens after that sampling event, and it's a formal event. So I've got a slide specifically for awards board, so I'll come back to that. When you're preparing for the end of year stuff, the awards board is key. You need to make sure that the right people are there. I can't overemphasize how important the minute taker is for the awards board. You need someone who's very skilled at taking minutes, typing fast, because the better your minute taker, the better your minutes are, and the quicker we can get through the awards board. Believe it or not, the minute taker is really key in that. And you start to prepare for the next academic year. So anything that you've learned through the academic year, you're starting to make notes in your handbook so that you can update them, and anything that you want to do differently. But one of those things, and I've noticed a spelling error, and I have had it proofread, so apologies for that, is your first visit recommendations and conditions. You must make sure that those are addressed, or you can provide evidence that they're ongoing, because the moderator that will be the first thing that they address on that final visit. Your moderator will send you a visit planner, and they will ask you for particular samples based on the spreadsheet that you give them of all the student results. And then You get ready, the final visit happens. You are confirming on behalf of the student the award of credit. So the student must sign a document to say, yes, I agree. These are the units that I have taken. These are the grades that I am expecting, and they sign, and the moderator will be looking for that, because we wouldn't want any student to achieve a diploma or to achieve an award of credit that was not accurate. So we must always make sure that the students have signed to say, please will you represent me at the awards board to claim my award of the Access HE diploma or credits if they've not got the full diploma. If there are any mitigating circumstances in preparation for the awards board, then you must gather those, because your moderator will want to know, why did you give that student that extra time? It might be that you have to take it to the awards board, and the awards board might have to agree to give a student some extra time based on mitigating circumstances. The moderator will be using the RAC, as we know what that is now, that recommendation for the award of credit, as their sampling document, and to check that everything is accurate. And that is what is then presented to the awards board. Any of your on-course referrals you will have dealt with in the year, but any referrals that have happened after kind of Easter, really, into kind of end of April, May, you will have to present those to the awards board, and the awards board will consider those requests for referrals, and that is really just allowing the student an extra opportunity to revisit a unit. But that has to be given quite a tight time scale, because obviously we want to get results completed and uploaded to UCAS. So there isn't a lot of time after the awards board for students to do a referral work, but that's the place to do it. So you hold your awards board. Now again, because we held one awards board this year for all results, we don't know whether QAA are thinking that that might be the best thing to do again next year, but we will let everybody know whether that's the case. And if we're doing it under normal circumstances, every college has an awards board. And depending on how big the provision is, you may have more than one awards board. It just depends on timings and size of provision, really. Once the awards board is done, you upload your final results to our portal, and we then begin the process of checking them and releasing certificates. And that's a really quick way of saying that a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. But once you then, and again, it might not even be you, you may never see these certificates, but someone in the college, your exams department, will receive those certificates. They must be checked, and before they're then sent on to students. We want to make sure that students get an accurate certificate, because if it's not accurate, we have quite, it's a licensing criteria that we have to report to QAA if students have been, certificates have been issued in error. So we'd have to work out what the error was if the student says this isn't right. Okay, so just very quickly to summarise what the role of the external moderator is, because the moderator is key in all of this, really. The moderator is a critical friend, and I know I've talked to certain colleagues who have said, oh, we're usually really scared when the external moderator comes, but you know, CERTA's moderators are really friendly and they're really helpful, and that's what we expect from our moderators. They are your critical friend. They are there to help you, to support you, to challenge you, to improve where that's needed, but really it's to support you through the whole of the academic year. And I don't know any of our moderators who wouldn't respond to an email, who wouldn't be available to answer a query. So they are a critical friend. And a lot of else that's on that slide we've already really covered. Apart from the fact that if you are running a diploma for the first time in your college, you will get an extra visit. So you will get one in about October, November time, to just make sure that you are set up and that you've got everything that you need and you can iron out any queries that you have. And that we've got a new centre moderator role that we've been using in 2019-20. And that's because a number of colleges have merged together to make groups. And there's a real need now for us to have a centre moderator that kind of oversees the moderation across those sites for that big group. And so far it's worked extremely well, so we'll be expanding on that role. Okay, so again, the awards board, I think I've covered all of that. The awards board is the provider's responsibility, it's not CERTA's responsibility. Only if QAA decide that CERTA will hold one ABA awards board, does it become our responsibility. But in the meantime, it is a centre's responsibility to hold an awards board. And we've got guidance and templates for all of that. So that comes later. It's not to think about for now. And then just finally, you know, some of the things that are key mandatory QAA CERTA requirements are the student registrations. If you miss a deadline without informing us, then there is a late registration fee, and we don't want anybody to have to pay that. So best is to communicate with us. Attendance at standardisation events. Our standardisation events are essential, they're mandatory. So again, if there's a reason why you can't send a representation from your diploma, we must be alerted to that, and that you must organise at least one internal standardisation event within your college for your diplomas. And then an auditable decision-making process for extensions to deadlines, mitigating circumstances. And I've mentioned about the awards board. Centre risk ratings are a collection of diploma risk ratings that we give to centres. And it's an overall risk for that centre based on the number of diplomas that you've got. And we've run that for the last year or so. So I'm coming to the end. That's our website at the moment. There are some changes around our logos and that kind of things, but we'll let people know as and when that happens. There's changes to our email addresses as well, which we'll alert people to. I'm opening it up to any questions. I will probably bring that out of, I'll stop sharing that now so I can see everybody again. And I'm hoping you've stayed with me. It's a lot of information in a really short space of time. But do unmute yourself now if you've written down any questions or you've got any queries that you want me to just run past before we finish. I'm happy for you to email me if you'd like to, but there's someone's put something in the chat there. Oh, hello everybody. That's Tara. Tara said hello. Any other queries? And I'm really sorry, it was a lot of information. Can I just ask those colleagues who are in colleges, was there anything that you've kind of, as we've been going through that, you've thought, I have no idea what this is, and you might not want to say out loud, but do feel free, because, you know, the more we know where you are, the more we can fill those gaps for you. I think particularly if you're brand new to Access, if you're familiar with other types of qualifications, there might be some crossover, but if you're brand new to Access, there might be a lot of terminology that you're unfamiliar with. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, because I'm trying to imagine when I first started teaching on Access, it is a whole new world, and it's not quite like other qualifications. I do know that, but I don't think I put my email address on there, but you can email the team and I will pick that up. So any final comments, because I'm aware of time and I don't want to keep you too long out of this. Has it given you a good sense of what happens during that academic year? There are other training events on. So if you were hoping that you would get a sense of grading and a sense of what happens around assessment and reaching that midpoint, we have got those events coming up. So don't feel like you will miss out on that. This was really just for people who brand new, want to get a sense of the year or want to refamiliarize themselves with it. So I'm hoping that has that has done that. I'm aware I covered a lot I did a year's worth in an hour. So it may feel a bit overwhelming, but we will share the slides with you. Do feel free to contact us at any time. Okay, so and if there's no other questions, I'm going to let you go off to your afternoon, because I'm sure you've all got other meetings and things to do and people to speak to now that you know that there's certain things that need to happen. So I hope everyone has a good academic year, and I'll see you again soon, I'm sure, in other training, and be in touch. Please don't feel like you can't be in touch, because you must contact us if there's anything. Okay, good to see everyone. Bye.
Bye.